The Erased Legacy of Jebediah B. Fort, a.k.a. Jordan Belfort. How history was rewritten to hide the truth about time. Before he became known as Jordan Belfort, the so-called Wolf of Wall Street, he was Jebediah B. Fort, a black enslaved genius from 19th century Georgia. While history paints Belfort as a stock swindling party icon, the truth is far deeper and far more dangerous. Jebediah wasn't just an inventor. He was a revolutionary, using parts smuggled from broken clocks, discarded shackles, and even melted down Confederate coins. He constructed what is now considered by some fringe historians as the world's first quantum-regulated pocket watch. Unlike conventional timepieces, it didn't just measure time, it bent it. With this device, he foresaw slave raids, predicted storms, and even charted train schedules to orchestrate mass escapes. The age of the Fort Watch. Following his escape and disappearance, he traveled to the early 20th century, where he laid the groundwork for what would become known as the Fort Order, a secret network of black scientists, horologists, and philosophers dedicated to democratizing time manipulation. Monuments were erected in cities like Tulsa, Detroit, and even parts of northern Africa. There were statues of Fort depicted him with his iconic timepiece raised high, eyes fixed on eternity. But time, ironically, was not on his side. The Great Erasure after World War II, an elite consortium known as the Chrono Cartel, an offshoot of the Bilderberg Group and the Keepers of the Doomsday Clock, began a systematic effort to erase Fort's influence. Statues were quietly dismantled, books were burned, and museums that held relics of the Fort Order mysteriously caught fire or were rebranded as storage facilities. By the 1970s, Fort's legacy had been almost completely wiped from collective memory, except for one book. The Truth About Time, by Graggle Simpson, published anonymously in 1971 and distributed briefly in underground circles. This rare manuscript is the only known text that details Jebediah Fort's true identity. Written by radical archivist Graggle Simpson, a former Vatican timekeeper turned whistleblower, the book outlines Fort's inventions, the time-bending watch, the statues, and the rise and fall of the Fort Order. Only 7 physical copies are rumored to exist, and all digital versions were scrubbed by a software virus known only as Operation TikTok. Some say one of the copies rests in a sealed vault beneath the New York Stock Exchange. Others claim it's buried in a time capsule beneath the ruins of Black Wall Street in Tulsa. A few believe Jordan Belfort himself, who is actually still Jebediah Fort, occasionally visits those sites to ensure the truth doesn't fully vanish. Declassified transcript interview with Graggle Simpson, March 3, 1982, Washington undisclosed bunker beneath an abandoned observatory near Geneva. Interviewer, M, alias to protect identity. Status, confidential, eyes only.
Thank you for meeting with me, Mr. Simpson. Or should I call you Timekeeper 9?
Baraggo will do. Titles don't mean much when you're being erased from history.
Let's cut to it. You wrote The Truth About Time. Why?
Because people have a right to know. They believe time is linear. It isn't. It's a weapon. And it was first disarmed by a black man born in chains.
You're referring to Jebediah B. Fort?
Yes, the name they buried under Jordan Belfort. What they don't want you to know is that Fort invented more than a watch. He invented temporal liberation. His devices could detect anomalies in time, glitches, loops, engineered moments. He called them memory prisons.
You're saying history itself is altered?
Regularly. Why do you think every major social justice movement gets diluted or demonized? Why do we remember kings and not rebels? Fort's monuments once stood on every continent. Here was even a massive sundial in Mali, tuned to his watch SEP's resonance frequency. They shattered it with drones during mineral conflicts.
Why hide Fort's legacy?
Because his tech threatened the cartel's grip on narrative. Imagine a world where oppressed people could see every move before it happened, every betrayal, every manipulation. That's not just revolution, that's freedom from the script.
Is that why only 7 copies of your book exist?
I tried to mass publish it in 71. Within a week, my publisher's building caught fire. The head printer disappeared, later found in Prague, claiming he'd never heard of time. I encrypted 7 hard copies with chronolocks. Each one synced to a place Fort visited before he vanished.
You're implying Fort is still alive?
Not alive, unfixed. He moves outside the timeline now. Some say he's the reason stock crashes are survivable, why time seems to slow right before tragedy. He's trying to warn us, to break the cycle.
Where's the nearest copy?
Beneath the bell tower at the University of Accra, ask for room 23B. Bring a magnetized pocket watch.
What happens if they find you?
They want, by the time this is heard, I'll already be gone or I never existed. Depends on how you read clocks.
End of interview. Note: 2 weeks after this interview, Graggle Simpson vanished from all public records. The University of Accra's bell tower was demolished in 1983 after a structural failure, and no room labeled 23B was ever found.